So we hear about hard work, talent, and discipline literally all the time, right? But how do they actually interact with one another? In this explainer, we're unlocking a fascinating story that decodes the real underlying mechanics of success. We're going to look at a wonderful source story that perfectly breaks down this exact dynamic step by step. Let's get right into it. Have you ever just stopped and honestly asked yourself, why do we struggle when others seem to succeed so easily? It's an incredibly relatable and, frankly, super frustrating feeling. You put in the hours, you grind away, and then someone else just breezes right past you with zero effort. To understand exactly why this happens, we're going to follow the journey of a 12-year-old boy named David in a brilliant life experiment set up by his father. Okay, let's dive into this. The source material introduces us to David. He's this energetic sixth grader with a massive passion for the outdoors. Almost every single day, you can find him at the nearby public field, just endlessly honing his soccer skills. But one afternoon, he comes home, slumps onto the couch, and just stares at his schoolbook with total dissatisfaction. The problem? Well, he had just received a really poor grade in math, and he was feeling completely defeated by it. Now here's the kicker. As the story reveals, it wasn't just the bad grade itself that was so deeply upsetting to David, it was the comparison. On one side, we have David's incredible soccer mastery, but on the other side, we have his close friend and neighbor, Matt. Matt seems to just possess this effortless brilliance when it comes to math. It's like no matter how hard David tries to study, he just cannot seem to score as high as Matt does. Seeing his son completely deflated, David's dad brings him out to their peaceful backyard garden to kind of decompress. He tells David that there are 3 really important lessons he needs to understand about what happened today. And instead of just lecturing him, his father sets up this brilliant rule of 3. Over the next few days, David is going to undergo 3 distinct challenges: a soccer match, an observation, and 1 ultimate test. So let's look at the first step. The first challenge leads us directly to lesson 1, unique strengths. The father tells David to invite his brilliant friend Matt to play soccer with him the very next day. Out on the field, David is absolutely in his element. He completely dominates the match, easily scoring 3 goals and leading his team to a massive victory. Meanwhile, Matt, who isn't very familiar with soccer at all, struggles the entire time. He's constantly losing the ball and making noticeable mistakes. When David cleans up and reports back to the backyard, his father delivers this really powerful realization. He says, Matt may not be good at soccer, but he's great at math. We each have our own strengths and passions. He emphasizes that just like David struggles with numbers but excels effortlessly out on the field, people are fundamentally different, and that is entirely okay. We all have inherent, unique talents, and you do not have to be exactly the same as everyone else to hold value. With a new wave of understanding kind of washing over him, David eagerly asks for the next challenge. And this brings us to lesson 2, consistent practice. For this second challenge, the father gives David a very specific task. He tells him to go to school the next day and quietly pay close attention to Matt. He wants David to meticulously keep track of every single time he sees Matt counting or actively working with numbers. When David returns from school that evening, he is genuinely amazed at what he found. He tracked exactly 4 distinct, highly varied ways that Matt casually interacted with numbers throughout that single day. I mean, Matt was working on standard math problems, sure, but he was also solving number puzzles just for fun. He was calculating the exact change during recess, and he was even literally just counting the petals on a flower. Matt wasn't just doing assigned homework, he was naturally integrating numbers into his entire day. Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is the true nature of practice. His father points out that Matt is exceptional at math because he actually enjoys it, so he practices it constantly without it ever feeling like a chore. The father notes, if you want to get better at something, you have to keep practicing. You can start with simple things. Consistent, effective practice doesn't have to be this agonizing grind. It stems from finding simple daily enjoyment in the task, just like counting flower petals. But the father knows David still needs to understand the darker side of the equation. And this leads to the final, incredibly grueling challenge. Lesson 3, forced discipline. The father asks David to pause and honestly assess the massive skill gap between him and Matt when it comes to math. He wants David to quantify exactly how much better Matt is at this specific subject. David thinks about it for a second and hesitantly estimates that Matt is about 3 times better at math than he is. Hearing this, his father issues the final challenge. If Matt is 3 times better, I want you to study math 3 times harder tomorrow. So the next day, David sits down to study, After 1 hour of intense focus, he pushes himself to do 2 more hours, tripling his effort. But before he can even finish, his head begins to aggressively throb, and without even realizing it, he completely passes out and falls asleep right there. So the absolutely crucial point here is what his father explains when he gently wakes him up for dinner. He says, "This is what happens when you try to master something you don't enjoy. It's hard to stay disciplined." The father is warning him about the severe burnout that comes from forcing discipline without any underlying passion. When you study something you love, consistency feels light, like playing soccer. But when you force it, well, it leads straight to the throbbing headaches and total exhaustion that David just experienced. And this brings our narrative to its emotional peak. Standing together back in that peaceful garden, having guided his son through these 3 rigorous, eye-opening challenges, the father is now ready to impart his final piece of overarching wisdom. This is the ultimate secret to success: how to practically merge your inherent passions with the reality of hard work and discipline. Before we reveal that final secret, let's just quickly stack these 3 lessons up into a single mental framework. 1. Embrace your unique strengths. It is okay to be different. 2. Practice thrives on enjoyment. Find the simple fun in the daily details. And 3. Forced discipline leads to burnout. Grinding away without passion is simply unsustainable. And this brilliantly illustrates his father's ultimate thesis, a piece of advice you can literally carry for life. Either study what you love or learn to love what you're studying. If you want to become a true expert at something, you simply cannot rely on miserable, forced willpower. You must either follow your inherent passions, or you've got to actively find a way to make your current studies enjoyable. You have to successfully merge passion with discipline. It's just such a profound, yet super practical way to look at how we learn and how we succeed. We aren't all built exactly the same, and trying to force ourselves into a mold without finding the joy in it only leads to exhaustion. Which leaves me with one final provocative question for you to ask yourself as we wrap up this explainer. What will you choose to learn to love today?